So what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? We're going to move on from the holding environment. Now that we're all good with the holding environment, we're going to move on. And you know, we're going to start with the real starting point here in these practices, which is the Four Noble Truths, which we know them, but like so many aspects of the teaching, we know them, and there are other nuances, there are other levels, there are other perspectives, there are other angles in. There's just more, there's always more for us to understand and to settle in with, to really take some time with each piece of the teaching that comes forward, to look at it, to look at its relevance, you know, to look at its importance. You know, in the old days, really, the old days, the 80s and the 90s were the old days, yeah? Unbelievable. In the 70s. There was really such a strong emphasis on, when these teachings came over here, just be mindful, that's all. Just be mindful and everything else will take care of itself. Everything will line up. Forget about all, yeah, I know the Four Noble Truths, but just be mindful. You know, that's the way home, just be mindful. Oh, and over time, so many of us have realized not just that there is a whole incredible body of teaching, but that it's all relevant. And all the pieces of the teaching are connected in innumerable ways. And that it's not, we can't just start wherever we would like. And we can't just start with the thing that was going to take us to the fast route to wisdom and freedom. You know, we had all the literature and it was just be mindful, just do open awareness, just do moment-to-moment awareness and all will be well. And most of us, I'll speak for myself, have found that, whoa, it was way too many steps were being skipped there. Yeah, I really have not appreciated so much of the teaching, so many of the dimensions of the teaching, the context in which mindfulness is embedded. You know, it's even only one of the 7 factors of awakening. It's not all 7 of them, it's one of the 7. There's so much there, there's so much richness. And it starts with the Four Noble Truths. We're going to spend some time on those, meander along with those and look at them carefully. Hold them up to the light. You know, I love the metaphor of taking something, really looking at it, feeling it, and holding it up to the light and looking at it from a number of different angles. What's going on? The Four Noble Truths. And the Buddha was asked to speak about so many things. His students wanted to, know about past lives, wanted to know about so many kind of macro and abstract things. And the Buddha would refuse to answer. Time and time again, he would refuse to answer. He was in the forest one time. He was in the forest a lot. And he said, look, you see all the leaves in the forest here? You see all the leaves in the forest here? And they picked up a bunch of leaves. He said, now here's a handful of leaves. There are a lot of things I could talk about. There are a lot of leaves out there. There's a lot of different kinds of understanding. But I'm only interested in this. Suffering and the end of suffering. That's it. Everything is going to rotate around this. Suffering and the end of suffering. And he would not answer questions. Many questions that were asked of him, if they weren't relevant right there. And the Four Noble Truths, of course, are kind of the encapsulation, in a sense, of his teaching. And what is the teaching? What are these Four Noble Truths? You know, we know them, right? There's suffering, there's the cause, there's the possibility of release from suffering, and there's the path. There's the path. Or we could say, I think of it this way sometimes, you know. The first noble truth is there's unhappiness, or we're unhappy. Huh? The second noble truth is that there are reasons for that. There are causes for that. The third noble truth is it's possible to be happier. And the fourth noble truth is this is how. Here are the practices. Or we could say the first noble truth is the diagnosis. There's suffering. Yeah. The second truth is the cause, the underlying cause of that diagnosis of suffering. The third noble truth is there's the prognosis. There's hope. And the fourth noble truth is the treatment plan, the behavioral and the affective and the cognitive treatment plan. Yeah? Yeah. But it's business about happiness and the more happiness, unhappiness and happiness. We think in those terms. I remember one time the Dalai Lama was at a conference and he was asked, what is the purpose of life? And people thought there was going to be something about seeing deeply into the nature of things. And he didn't say that. He paused and he says, it's to be happy. It's to be happy. That's what we all want. You know, there's this thought that what I really want is the truth. That's what I want. I want to understand the truth. At the end of the day, I want to be more content. I want to feel more deeply at home in this mind and body. Sure, I want to understand, but I want to feel at home, really at home, and I don't. I think it's important to get a feel for the truth of that. Do you know? Yeah. We want to be more deeply at home, and I think that's what the Dalai Lama is pointing to there. Yeah? Suffering and the end of suffering. Yeah? And it starts with dukkha. It starts with dukkha. And many of you may know the original definition of dukkha. Yeah? In those days, they had ox-driven carts, of course, and there was an axle that would go into the wheel. And the dukkha that the Buddha talked about, the dukkha that he felt we could do something about, was that the axle, it's as if the axle is not fitting very well in the wheel well. And so every time the wheel turns, there's a little bump, little bump, little bump, little bump. It's not smooth. It's not smooth. I love that description because it really does capture the flow of our lives, doesn't it? Not necessarily crisis every moment, but there's a bump, there's a hook, there's a trigger. It's not quite right. Not, what's this? Don't want this, want this. As we move through our day, it's not that easy flow. There's not that harmony. There is not that alignment. Yeah? Getting what we want. Not getting what we want. Getting what we don't want. On and on. The Four Noble Truths. So we're going to spend some time on this, all four of them, one at a time. One at a time, over these next days, weeks, probably.
Months.
Probably. Months, maybe.
Probably.
Years, maybe.
Let's not scare them.
Decades. You know, it's funny, though, Dalai Lama was asked one time, he was really frustrated. I was at this conference, and people kept saying, I want a quick answer. I want a quick fix. I want something now, right? This is our culture. I want something quick. Can you give us a quick meditation that will take us to the promised land, That's paraphrases. And finally he said, you Westerners, you're so impatient. You're so impatient. And he leans in and he says, maybe a little change every decade is good, no? So we also, we have to be patient with ourselves. We know this. Yeah, we know this. Yeah, a little bit at a time. Baby steps.